Welcome to the Barbara O'Neill podcast. I'm Mark, and with me today, as always, is Dr. Barbara O'Neill, an experienced physician who has dedicated her life to improving health outcomes for older adults. It's great to have you with us, Barbara. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here, and I have to say this topic we're diving into today is one I encounter almost daily in my work with seniors. It's both misunderstood and over-medicalised. You've likely heard the advice, keep your fasting blood sugar below 100, but is that really appropriate for someone over 65? Are we applying the same numbers across the board without thinking about what's truly best for an ageing body? Exactly. What's considered normal for a 30-year-old may actually be too aggressive and even risky for someone in their 70s or beyond. Our metabolism, hormone responses, and even medication tolerances shift as we age. Those shifts matter. In today's episode, we'll break down what the latest medical guidelines actually say when slightly elevated blood sugar might be safer than we think, and why chasing perfect numbers can sometimes do more harm than good. This isn't just about numbers, it's about people, real people who deserve advice tailored to their stage of life. So stay with us, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the Barbara O'Neill podcast for trusted age-smart health insights. I think one of the biggest misconceptions people face, especially seniors, is the idea that blood sugar targets are fixed and universal. We've been told for years that fasting glucose must fall between 70 and 99 milligrams DL. It's written in pamphlets, broadcasted in commercials, and reinforced by routine checkups. But here's the thing, those numbers are based on research done primarily on younger, healthier adults, and applying them directly to someone in their 70s or 80s can create unnecessary anxiety and even dangerous interventions. And the trouble is, when older adults are told that anything above 100 is pre-diabetic, they immediately feel like something is wrong with them, even when they're completely stable. The truth is, our metabolism changes with age. We become less insensitive, glucose disposal slows down, and hormonal shifts can subtly elevate fasting blood sugar levels. These are natural age-related adaptations, not necessarily signs of disease. Yet many seniors are prescribed medications just to force their numbers down, often to their own detriment. The risks of overcorrecting are real. When you aggressively lower blood sugar in an older adult, you increase the risk of hypoglycemia. That's not just feeling lightheaded, it's confusion, imbalance, fainting, and even serious falls that could lead to fractures or hospitalizations. Thankfully, modern guidelines are starting to acknowledge this. The American Diabetes Association's 2023 update now recommends a more relaxed target. Fasting glucose between 90 and 130 millilitres for older adults with chronic conditions, and HbA1c levels between 7.5% and 8.0% in many cases. It's encouraging to see those shifts. The UK's NICE guidelines are also aligned with this more individualised approach. Rather than chasing textbook targets, the focus is now on safety, function and stability. A slightly higher fasting glucose may actually help protect cognitive function and reduce the chance of sudden dips in blood sugar, which are much more dangerous in older populations. I've seen patients who were labelled diabetic at 106 fasting, put on medication, and end up worse off than before. That's heartbreaking, and it's not just physical consequences. We also have to talk about mental health. Constantly worrying about numbers, checking glucose 5 times a day, feeling like you're failing if you're at 110, it's exhausting. For older adults, the goal should be to support quality of life, not burden them with unnecessary fear. And the irony is there's research showing that pushing blood sugar too low may harm the very organ we're trying to protect, the brain. A 2020 study published in Diabetes Care found that strict glucose lowering in adults over 70 actually correlated with increased cognitive decline. Why? Because the aging brain needs a steady supply of glucose. When we strip that away with drugs or over-restriction, mental clarity suffers. So the takeaway here is that normal isn't one size fits all. A 35-year-old and a 78-year-old should not be held to the same lab standards. If a senior's fasting glucose is around 115 or 120 and they feel well, eat consistently, sleep soundly and move daily, then that number may be completely fine. I couldn't agree more. What matters most is how the person functions in daily life. Are they energetic, clear-headed, independent? Then their blood sugar is likely serving them just fine. Chasing arbitrary numbers can pull focus away from what truly defines health in older age. Balance, stability and resilience. What we just talked about, the idea that a slightly higher blood sugar can be perfectly safe, leads us straight into something even more critical: the hidden dangers of going too low. For years we've been taught that lower is always better. But when it comes to older adults, that belief can quickly become a dangerous trap. It's one of the most harmful assumptions in modern medicine. In younger people, tighter glucose control might reduce long-term complications. But in seniors, the immediate consequences of low blood sugar are far more urgent. We're talking about real-world risks: severe dizziness, loss of balance, fainting, and falls that can lead to fractures or head injuries. These aren't rare side effects, they're common outcomes when glucose drops too far. These episodes often go unrecognised. Seniors might not experience the classic signs of hypoglycemia like sweating or tremors. Instead, they may feel confused, slow to respond, or emotionally flat. And those symptoms are easily mistaken for aging itself or even dementia. So caregivers or doctors might miss the fact that it's actually low blood sugar causing the problem. I've had patients come to me after being labelled cognitively impaired when in fact their brains were starving. Their glucose levels were being pushed too low by medication, often in pursuit of a target that was never appropriate for them in the first place. Once we adjusted their regimen and allowed for a more forgiving range, their clarity and energy came back sometimes within days. There's even solid science behind that. A 2022 study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that older adults with HbA1c levels below 6.5%, what many would call perfect control, actually had higher all-cause mortality than those in the 7.08.0% range. That flips the narrative, doesn't it? Perfection might not just be unnecessary, it might be dangerous. It absolutely flips the narrative. And this is where context becomes everything. For example, a senior who's taking insulin or sulfonylureas is much more prone to hypoglycemia than someone managing with lifestyle alone. If that person is skipping meals or dealing with illness or even just not sleeping well, their glucose can plummet overnight. It's a ticking time bomb. And sadly, many seniors are never warned about this in trying to protect. It's okay for your morning glucose to be in the 110s or 120s if it means you feel steady, clear-headed and safe throughout the day. We should also emphasize how dangerous yo-yo glucose can be. It's not just about avoiding lows, but also avoiding those big swings from high to low. That volatility is extremely taxing on the heart, the brain and overall energy levels. And it tends to get worse when people are over-medicated or obsessively trying to correct every little spike. I often remind my patients, you're not a lab report, you're a whole person. Your numbers should support your life, not control it. If you're feeling okay, functioning well and not experiencing symptoms, then chasing tighter and tighter numbers may not help you. In fact, it might hurt you. That's a message every older adult deserves to hear, especially those who've spent years living under the pressure of being perfect. Maybe the best thing they can do for their health is to let go of that pressure and start aiming for balance instead. That idea of letting go of perfection and aiming for balance is where things really start to change for older adults. Because once you stop obsessing over every single number, you begin to notice something else. How sleep, stress and even daily movement quietly shape blood sugar in powerful ways. I've spoken to so many seniors who think their glucose is out of control when in reality it's their lifestyle patterns that need adjusting, not their medication. You're absolutely right, Mark. One of the most overlooked influences is sleep, especially fragmented sleep. As we age, deep sleep becomes harder to maintain. Waking up multiple times a night, particularly around 2 or 3 a.m., is extremely common, but that's also when cortisol, our natural stress hormone, tends to rise prematurely. When cortisol spikes too early, it triggers the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream even without food intake. This phenomenon is known as the dawn effect, and it's a common reason seniors wake up with unexpectedly high glucose levels. That really reframes the blame. It's not always I ate too many carbs. Sometimes it's I didn't sleep well, and I imagine most people never connect the dots between poor sleep and morning sugar spikes. Many of my patients feel discouraged because they're doing everything right during the day, but their numbers are still elevated in the morning. Once we start working on improving sleep hygiene, like reducing blue light at night, keeping a regular bedtime, or avoiding heavy meals late, those morning spikes often settle down naturally. The same goes for movement, I'd say. So many older adults live a mostly sedentary lifestyle, especially after retirement, but even light activity like a 15-minute walk after meals can significantly reduce glucose levels and improve insulin sensitivity. The body's largest glucose sink is muscle, and the good news is it doesn't take high-intensity workouts to activate that system. Gentle walks, gardening, even housework, these all help the muscles absorb glucose more efficiently. Consistency matters more than intensity. A little movement each day protects against both high sugar and insulin resistance. It's empowering really, because instead of focusing only on what not to eat, seniors can look at when and how they move and how they sleep as equally powerful tools. I've also seen that meal timing plays a role. Many older adults skip breakfast or eat very little all day, then have a large meal at night. That late spike can affect both digestion and sleep. When glucose metabolism slows with age, the body prefers smaller, balanced meals spaced throughout the day. Having protein and fibre earlier in the day and avoiding heavy dinners can flatten glucose curves and also help with nighttime cortisol's regulation. It creates a better internal rhythm. So in a way, these non-food factors, sleep, stress, movement, timing, are just as important as what's on the plate. It all ties back to the idea of balance, not just in numbers but in daily rhythm. I always tell my patients, if you're chasing numbers without sleeping well, without moving and eating at odd hours, the body won't respond predictably. But when you support the body's natural rhythm, glucose tends to follow. Balance begins with lifestyle first, not just prescriptions. After talking about how sleep, cortisol and movement shape our glucose levels, there's one more core piece we have to cover: nutrition. Because even when someone's sleeping better and staying active, what they put on their plate still has a major impact. The key, though, is not following restrictive fads, but learning how to eat in a way that respects both aging, digestion and glucose control. The goal isn't to eat less, it's to eat smarter. I often tell older adults each meal should include 3 stabilizing elements: protein, healthy fat and slow digesting carbohydrates. This combination helps keep glucose steady, reduces cravings and supports long-term energy. It's also far more sustainable than cutting entire food groups. And for many seniors, digestion becomes more sensitive with age. So food choices need to be both gentle and effective. I've seen people thrive on simple meals like oatmeal with ground flaxseed and a boiled egg, or a baked sweet potato with sardines and steamed spinach. These dishes are comforting, easy to prepare and give a full spectrum of nutrients. Those are excellent examples. One trick that really helps is eating in the right order. Studies show that when we start a meal with fibre or protein like a salad or a few bites of chicken before eating starches, it can blunt the glucose spike by 30–40%. It's a small habit that creates a big difference, especially for people trying to avoid medication. Let's not forget hydration. Even mild dehydration can cause glucose to concentrate in the blood. I usually suggest sipping water throughout the day, not in large gulps, but steadily. It supports kidney function and reduces the risk of sugar building up unnecessarily. Eating well isn't about cutting out joy, it's about building structure. When seniors nourish themselves with balanced, well-timed meals, they're giving their body the tools to regulate glucose naturally. And in many cases, that alone is powerful enough to avoid or reduce medication. Everything we've shared so far about eating wisely, moving gently, sleeping better isn't just theory. I recently had the privilege of watching someone close to me transform her health using these exact strategies. She's 78 years old, lived alone for over a decade, and had been told by her doctor that her fasting glucose was too high, hovering around 128. They wanted to start her on medication immediately, but she hesitated. She wasn't against medicine, but something inside her said, not yet. Let me try another way first. I love stories like that. Too often older adults are told medication is their only option when in fact with the right support their bodies can respond beautifully to small changes. What steps did she take? She kept it simple. Every morning, instead of skipping breakfast like she used to, she made a small bowl of steel-cut oats with cinnamon, chia seeds and a few walnuts. She also took a 15-minute walk around the block after each meal, rain or shine. We adjusted her dinner to be lighter, mostly fish or eggs with steamed greens, and pushed it earlier so she wasn't eating right before bed. Sleep improved, and so did her morning numbers. That's exactly the kind of shift I recommend. Nothing extreme, just consistent, nourishing habits that align with how the body naturally works. Did her labs reflect the change? They did. After just 3 months, her fasting glucose dropped to 105, and her A1C went from 6.9% to 6.2%. And the best part, she felt it. More energy, clearer thinking, fewer dizzy spells. She even started gardening again, which she hadn't done in years. That's real sustainable healing. It shows that when we stop chasing perfect numbers and instead support the body with practical lifestyle tools, the body responds. Even at 78, she proved that improvement is always possible. Her story reminded us that progress doesn't require perfection. It just requires understanding your own body and respecting its pace. For seniors, the healthiest blood sugar isn't always the lowest one. It's the one that supports stability, safety, and strength. Absolutely, there's no one-size-fits-all number. What truly matters is whether your glucose lets you think clearly, move confidently, and enjoy your day. When we personalize our approach through food, movement, sleep, and mindset, we finally shift from managing numbers to nurturing health. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for listening. We want to thank you for joining us today. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to like, share it with someone you care about, and leave a comment below. We love hearing your stories, and don't forget to subscribe to the Barbara O'Neill podcast so you never miss another episode built to support your well-being. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay curious, and stay kind to your